All right, let's be honest. Have you ever been on a project that just felt doomed from the start? Like late from day one? Yeah, you are definitely not alone. So today we're going to dig into this huge puzzle. Why do so many projects fail? And maybe, more importantly, what are the big ideas that actually make them succeed? Let's jump right in.
This quote, wow. It's from Eli Goldratt's book Critical Chain, and it just hits home, doesn't it? It perfectly nails that sinking feeling we all know. You plan everything down to the last detail, and yet you just know something is going to go sideways. It almost feels like it's a law of the universe or something.
And that leads us to the million-dollar question, right? Why? Why are so many projects late and over budget? Is it just bad luck? Are we hiring the wrong people? Or, and this is the interesting part, is there something fundamentally broken about the way we've always tried to manage them? Well, we're about to find out, and let me tell you, the answer has changed a lot over the years.
Okay, so let's start at square one. What even is a project? The official definition from the PMBOK guide has two words that are absolutely key here: temporary and unique. Temporary just means it has a start and an end. But unique, that means you're doing something that hasn't been done in exactly the same way before. So right there, in the definition itself, you can see how risk and uncertainty are just baked into the DNA of every single project. And look, this isn't just a vague feeling we all have. It's real, and there are numbers to prove it. A study mentioned in Critical Chain found that, on average, projects blow past their budget by a staggering 16.2%. I mean, think about that. That is a huge, real-world cost that shows this problem isn't just an annoyance, it's a massive, expensive issue. So, when you're faced with all this chaos and uncertainty, what's the first human instinct? Well, it's to impose order, right? To try and wrestle this wild beast of a project to the ground with process, with super detailed plans, with Gantt charts. This was the beginning of the quest for absolute control. And the first solution seemed, well, it seemed totally logical at the time. The thinking went something like this. Hey, a project is just a bunch of tasks, right? So let's just plan every single task out from start to finish before we even begin. This is that classic waterfall approach. It basically treats a project like it's a car on an assembly line, predictable, repeatable. But, and this is a huge but, we're about to see why that's a really, really flawed way to look at it.
And this whole project as a machine idea was ruled by what people call the iron triangle. You've got scope, time, and cost. The whole belief was that a perfect project manager could juggle these three things perfectly. Success meant one thing: delivering exactly what you promised, on the exact day you promised it, for the exact amount of money you promised. There was zero room for error, no deviations.
But here's the trap, and it's a big one. As author Scott Berkun says in Making Things Happen, you can get so focused on the plan that you completely lose touch with what's actually happening on the ground. You know, managers get obsessed with their perfect spreadsheets and their checklists, and they forget that they're not managing a machine. They're managing creative, unpredictable work being done by actual people. It's that classic mistake where the map becomes more important than the actual territory you're trying to navigate.
And that, right there, brings us to our first huge plot twist in this story. This whole quest for perfect mechanical control, it slammed right into a wall. And that wall was the messy, unpredictable, and frankly brilliant reality of human beings. Because it turns out, projects aren't machines. Not at all. They're complex human systems. Now, this visual here shows a truly groundbreaking idea from Fred Brooks' classic book, The Mythical Man Month. So picture this. Your project is late. What's the knee-jerk reaction from management? Throw more people at it, right? But as this chart shows so clearly, that gut instinct can be an absolute disaster. This is the essence of what's called Brooks's Law. So why does adding people to a late project make it even later? Well, think about it. The new folks have to be trained, right? And who's going to train them? The people who are already stressed out and behind schedule. On top of that, as you add more people, the number of communication lines just explodes. Pretty soon, everyone is spending more time in meetings and coordinating with each other than they are actually, doing the work. So what's the big takeaway here? It's not a numbers game. It's not about the quantity of people. It's all about the quality of the team. The book Peopleware has a great term for this, a gelled team. You know what I'm talking about. It's that almost magical state where a team just clicks. They have momentum, they trust each other, and they become this unstoppable force. And that kind of chemistry, well, you just can't measure that in a spreadsheet. Okay, so if trying to micromanage every single task and every single person is a recipe for disaster, then what's the alternative? Well, the next huge breakthrough came from a total shift in focus. Instead of trying to manage everything, the idea was to manage the one thing that's actually holding you back, the bottleneck.
This line from the book, The Goal, seems so simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Think about a chain. How strong is it? It's only as strong as its weakest link, right? The same is true for your project. The overall speed of your project isn't set by your fastest, most productive person. Nope. It's determined entirely by the speed of your slowest part, your biggest constraint.
This really gives us two completely different ways of looking at the world. On one hand, you have the cost world. In this view, the goal is to make sure everyone is busy all the time, because busyness looks like efficiency. But then you have the throughput world. Here, the focus is entirely on the bottleneck. Why? Because you realize that the only work that actually counts is the work that makes it all the way through that bottleneck to the finish line. So your number one priority becomes protecting that bottleneck and making sure it has everything it needs to run at full capacity.
And Goldratt actually laid out a simple 5-step playbook for this. Step 1, identify your constraint. You have to find it first. Step 2, exploit it. That means you squeeze every bit of productivity out of it. Make sure it's never idle and it's always working on the most important stuff. Step 3, subordinate everything else. The entire rest of the system's job is to support that bottleneck. Step 4, elevate it. If you still need more, you invest in making that constraint better. And finally, Step 5, once you've broken a constraint, go right back to Step 1, because guess what? There's always a new bottleneck somewhere else.
Now, this whole way of thinking, focusing on the system, not just the parts, was a massive leap forward. But the world kept changing. It got faster, more complex, more uncertain. So a new question popped up. What do you do when the finish line itself keeps moving? The answer was totally radical. It was stop fighting uncertainty and start embracing it. And that, my friends, is the agile shift. And you can see the difference so clearly here. On one side, you've got the old predictive model. That's where you make one giant, detailed plan up front, and then you have one big delivery way at the end. But on the other side, you have the adaptive model. And here, you work in these small, quick cycles. You plan a little bit, you build a little bit, you show it to people, you get their feedback, and then you adapt. It's a continuous loop.
And thinking behind this is it's a game changer. Your number one goal is no longer follow the plan, it's make the customer happy. Change isn't this terrible thing you have to avoid at all costs. It's an opportunity. It's a chance to build something even better. And you do it by talking to each other constantly, and most importantly, by delivering real, working stuff frequently, so you always know you're on the right track.
And this quote, it really just sums up the whole story we've been telling here. We've gone from a world that was completely obsessed with process, with following the plan perfectly, to a world that cares about one thing and one thing only: outcomes, delivering real value. In the end, it's not about how perfectly you followed your original map. It's about whether you actually arrived at an amazing destination.
So I'm going to leave you with this one question to think about. Is your project a machine that you need to control? Or is it a living, breathing system that you need to guide? The old way of thinking was all about control. The new way is about nurturing, about guiding, about adapting. And honestly, just figuring out which one of those you're dealing with, that might be the single biggest key to whether you fail or succeed.